when you believe like, man, these are great leads, I'm going to have a positive outcome, I'm going to change my life, what ends up happening is you do the actions that then create it. And I
Yeah.
think that's where it is. I think it's like the law of attraction. I do think there is like everything in life is energy transfer. It's like, sales,
Yeah.
energy transfer, all that stuff. So if you're putting positive vibes out there, you're going to get positive vibes back. I actually do
Right.
believe that. Something I went live in the group of gym owners this morning, and this is something I think you're really going to have some pretty good input on. It's actually something that Josh and I were talking about yesterday on our meeting, and it was about the law of attraction, because we were talking about a gym owner. I think he's breaking even, middle of the road, never really had like monumental success or anything like that. He starts running ads, and you can totally relate, probably your lawyer clients, and they're like, the leads come in, and it's like, oh, this lead's too far away, or this person's not from a good enough area, or I don't know if this person's going to have enough money or something like that. And that's what that person's focusing on. And as a result, like, not really, there's zero signups have happened. Whereas another gym owner, literally, like, leads started coming in. He's like, oh my gosh, this lead flow is insane. These are the perfect clients. I can just tell these are my ideal people. I'm going to be able to help them. And as a result,
Yeah.
even though this person's never run ads before, actually, it's interesting. And I have another kind of like story to share with that. This week alone, he's already added like 4 clients. And by the way, he hadn't added like any new clients at all. And this dude was down to less than $15 in his bank account prior to changing that around. But the entire time, he was like, this is going to work. I know it's going to be successful. These clients are great. You got the other person who's like, I don't know about these clients, kind of putting it out there. So Josh was even talking about, he's like, that's just law of attraction. He's like, you put negative energy out there, you focus on the negative things, negative outcomes are going to happen. Same thing with this guy, where he's like, he's putting that positive energy out there. He's focusing on the positive things. So he's focusing on, hey, in this list of 100 leads, 5, 10, 15, 20 perfect clients.
Yeah.
Whereas the other guy's focusing on, I got 5, 10, 15 terrible people that aren't a good fit, as opposed to the 5 to 20 that are going to be great. And it was just actually kind of interesting. And I think, there was a period of time for probably, and we kind of talked about this a little bit in the last episode, like I went through like probably a solid year where I didn't really think, like, I didn't have the best positive outlook on things. So as a result, it kind of was like just a middle of the road year. Like I was getting my shit together. I was focusing on some different areas. Um, so I had a lot of positive energy
What,
in those areas, but
2020?
I had a lot of, I think was it 2020, 2021 or whatever. I think it was more 2021, but I was kind of like, I went through, I was like, I don't even care about, like, I'm not trying to grow a business right now at all. I'm trying to just work on myself and stuff like that. But also in the back of my mind, I was like, I don't know if I'll be able to do this again. That was actually a lot of the thoughts that I had. Like, oh man, I had my one big business. I can't replicate this. I'm a failure. Like those actually thoughts came up a lot. And it wasn't, and then it was like the flip switched the flip again. But that's not even what I want to talk about today though. But I thought kind of leading in with that, because I know that's kind of also in a belief structure that you have too, is like, I can manifest, I can create the outcome that I want.
So
So,
I think it's like, and I love the topic, but I think it gets, and I know we've talked about this before, but I think it gets misconstrued, like that you can just think about something and manifest something and attract it to you. I think it's more for like people like me that don't believe in like magic, right? Like there's truth to it, but if you break it down to the simple thing, like I've never seen when I was younger, I used to like Ford Focuses. I don't know why they suck. But I always just like when they had that new restyle, and this was like maybe in the 90s
yeah,
or whatever. And then I noticed that car everywhere. When I saw one, I'm like, that's cool.
yeah,
I noticed it everywhere, right? So I don't think necessarily that we're like attracting them things, or like all of a sudden things are coming to us. I think that we are more primed to notice them and take action on them, or see the good in them. And, like you say, all the clients are good. If you look at the good of a client, right? You're able to notice an outcome to where, hey, this might have not been my ideal client, but I got 3 referrals off of them and I learned a valuable lesson in training them, right? So I think that it primes you. I think the good's always there and the positives are always there, but by training your mindset on that, you're priming yourself to see that and notice it when it's there. When you said like we had an attorney who was like, oh, I'm not calling this lead. Typically, he saw the description, typically leads like this, like, don't end up turning out. So he like never even called them. I'm like, but how did you haven't called him to find out?
You
And
don't
if
even know.
he primed himself to think that this is a negative and this isn't going to work, when he could have been like, hey, it's just practice. It's typically not, but this could be the 1 in a million case, and think positively.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like it's attracting it. It was there. You just took action on it and notice it now. If you're thinking the good thing.
I think it's the two things. The one thing with that, the first thing is I do believe it's the energy you put out there is the energy you're going to attract. So if you're a negative person, you're going to attract negative people, or you're going to attract negative situations partly because I think there is some magical.
Good people are going to run away from you. They're going to run from you fast.
Yeah. But also it's like when you believe like, man, these are great leads. I'm going to have a positive outcome. I'm going to change my life. What ends up happening is you do the actions that then create it. And I think that's where it is. I think it's like the law of attraction. I do think there is like everything in life is energy transfer. It's like, sales energy transfer, all that stuff. So if you're putting positive vibes out there, you're going to get positive vibes back. I actually do believe that. If you put negative energy out there, you're going to get negative shit.
You're right.
But also your actions that you're going to take. If you believe that this is going to work, that these leads are good, that this might be the 1 in a million, you are then going to do, because that's exactly it. He's like, I'm not even going to call this person. And that was the action of, this lead's not good. I'm like, how do you know? Whereas the other person's like, this might be the one, this might be the person that changed their fucking life. And then as a result, they call. And the other thing is like, when I was talking to, and I'm just like so pumped with this gym owner, just because honestly, like he was in a fucking shit situation.
Yeah.
He literally he had like 15 clients. He was like a typical gym owner who spent way too much money on their build out, but didn't have the marketing and sales skills. He didn't been learning that stuff. He had a full-time job. So like he spent too much money on build out. His most of his energy was going elsewhere. And it was supplying the fact that he was losing money every single month. Well, he got fired from his job. So he had no other income. He had $15 left in his bank account. So I was like, fuck, dude. I was like, this is what you need to do. I actually generally hate paid in fulls, but you need to do some paid in fulls. So here's a paid in full play to get as many of your people to pay in full for a membership so you can get some cash, so you can have some, kind of like relax and have a little bit of runway. And then also, since you do semi-private training, here's this offer that you're going to put out there for semi-private training that's super high ticket. You're going to get some people in. He did exactly that, got a couple G's as a result. And he just implemented, even though like he was a little down, he's like looking, he's like, I got $15 left in my bank account. Like, oh shit. And then literally changed it. And then he was like, all right, now I have the actual money to run ads, and then even just spending like $25 bucks a day, but back was against the wall. And next thing you know, he's like, the ads are up. He's seen the great clients or ideal leads. So he's calling, he's putting the 14 to 16 hour days in order to change the situation, because he believes he can change it just with what he has in place. And as a result, he's adding clients every single day. It's really, so it's really cool. So that's sort of like, kind of like started thinking about where then you have sometimes those people that are just like, oh, the situation is going to change. These people are broke. And it's like, well, that's why you actually attract, you can't even attract anybody to work for you. It's the same belief. Like, oh, employees suck. There's no good people that want to work right now. Right. Well, if that's what you believe, that's what you're going to get.
Well, you'll never see the good in them either, and you're just going to run all the employees out the door. Yeah. You read the 48 Laws of Power, right?
Nope.
Good book. But there's a chapter that says, I think it's 13. I think 13 is called Avoid the Unhappy and Unlucky.
Oh, it's so true.
It's like you ever met, and I think like when I first read it, I thought of like, somebody in high school I'm like, wow, they're just miserable. They're always like frazzled. There's always something wrong. There's always, and it just keeps coming back to them. So like, I get it. I believe there's a component to the energy thing, but like, I start to like, I think my mind needs to rationalize and like make things like not so I can't understand energy and how it works. So like, I kind of, I want like a tactical, simple way to like understand it. So that's why I go that route. But yeah, dude, it's your mindset's everything. And this is like funny that you came up with the subject and we didn't plan this at all, because I was reading Atomic Habits this morning. I just started it.
Okay.
And he was talking about goals, right? And it's not enough to just set goals. It's like, what's your structure and your plan to get there, right? And he's like, structure is almost more important than a goal, because like you can hit a goal without having a goal just by having the structure, just by having the daily routine and the daily structure. He's like, if a basketball team, instead of setting the goal to win a championship, let's just have the structure, because you set a goal to win a championship, and then the structure is to, coach your coaches up and make sure they lead their players and put the right practices in place and, yada, 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 and whatever. He's like, but you can just do the structure part. You might win a championship, right? Like you don't even have to have the goal. So it's like really important to like, have that. I don't even know how I got on that tangent, but it's kind of similar to our
Well,
topic today.
it's the saying. It's a goal without a plan is just a wish.
Right.
So it's like, hey, here's this dream, but if I want to make this dream a reality, I got to have the plan and the strategy, and then I got to take the action steps. It's
Right.
it's having that like big, hairy, audacious goal that you're
Right.
chasing. This like, I want to have all of these things, and this business thing, and this life, this thing. Then it's like, cool. If I want to do that, what are the process goals? What am I doing on a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, yearly, multi-year basis in order to actually get there? And chances are, if you actually just do those things on a daily
Yeah.
basis, you'll get whatever your wish was, whatever your dream was, because you're making it a reality. You're taking the action steps.
But you have to have that mindset.
Like,
you have to have like a winning mindset, not a negative mindset. If you look at things bad, like I'm not going to do it. And I listen to a lot of business owners, like you said, listen to a lot of attorneys, like these leads all suck. Like I had somebody complain to me, they signed 6 cases off of $7,000, which is really good. And
that's awesome.
And their calls per case on average in the industry is like 1,500 to 2,000. They signed 6 off of $7,000, and we talked about it at the end of the month when they're looking to continue, and they had a complaint. And the complaint was that they had to work too hard to get it, that they had to work through too many leads. And we're like, we told you 15% of these are going to convert.
The average, I think, in the industry cost per acquisition for gyms is it's like $150, $200 to acquire a client. I remember for us, it was $67 across my 8 locations. And that's when I just went out. I was like, you know what? I'm going to make an offer that's a big FU to everybody around me, because I know that my cost per acquisition is $67, which is super cheap. But also because we have the recurring revenue, we don't need to make money day one. We can make money, we can wait till month 2 or 3 and we'll be fine. Obviously, I prefer to make money as early as possible, but I can wait out, whereas not a lot of other people can. So that's when we put the offer together, 30 days for $67, even though I don't generally like low barrier offers. But also, I believe so much in our process, because also looking at the numbers, our attrition across all 8 locations was under 5%. Industry average is 10%. 8 locations average was 4.6 or whatever for my 8. So I did a double your money back guarantee. I don't know, this is completely irrelevant, but it was like,
insane.
I knew so well that like, hey, one, I didn't need to get money day one. What we were delivering was so awesome. Like, here's this killer offer out there that other people like really couldn't compete with. And we were trying to attract it. That offer would attract a different person than like our flagship offer too. And that was exactly what it was for. But I also believed in it so much of what I was doing that the actions would happen and our product was great. Just like a gym owner out here I started working with, like you were talking about the average cost per acquisition, knowing that it was like 150 right now or whatever, $200 for some gym owners, there's some like 400 or whatever, or 100 or whatever. Generally, it's like, hey, for every 10%. So let's just even say it's 100 for the good ones or whatever. We had a guy who was like so fucking pumped. They've spent, I wish I could check. They've spent like $276 on their ads and have acquired 30 clients.
That's insane, dude.
That's insane. I'm like,
where's this market? I'm opening up a gym there. Where is this market?
He's like, I need to. He's like, I think we need to turn ads off and down. I'm like, I don't think you should. I was like, maybe
get
turn
more
them
staff.
down. Like, you got momentum. Like, keep on rolling this. Like, start it. We're like, sign people up now to start later so you can over deliver on who you have now. But it was also because this person believed. They're like the conversations were, I'm so good. It's good. We're going to crush. Like, if I get them in here, I change their life. And that's like exactly with Legion. Like, I believe so much in the product. It's like, I'll open it up in any market. And that's why we're getting excited to really ramp up next year and start awarding more franchise, because I know the product's so good. Our marketing is better than anybody else out there. So we just got to go out there and we're going to help people. But those are the beliefs that we have. There's other people, they just don't have that sometimes, which is fine.
Even in sales, right? Like, if you don't believe in your product, you can't sell. And like, people will see right through you. Like, they won't buy into what you have.
Yeah.
So I remember like when I was at Benz, there was the CEO there. I was like, top dog, was selling a lot of cars, was doing well. I was under the mindset of like, I'm just a seller. I don't give a fuck. Like, I'm sales. These are cars. It is what it is. And like, we do like product walkarounds, and somebody was like smarter than me in one of the cars, and they knew more shit about all this stuff. And like I said to the COO, I'm like, doesn't matter. That dude will never sell more cars than me. And he's like, well, product knowledge is really important. And like, to a degree, he's right. Like, and I see now why product knowledge is wrong, but I disagree in one aspect. I think that your knowledge, like, it doesn't have to be so deep to where you know, like, what kind of metals are using for the struts to do this. Like, that is irrelevant, right? Mm-hmm. But you need to know the product enough to have conviction that is the best thing for your client, whether it be a car, whether it be a fitness program. You need to know your product to be like, wow, that is an unbelievable deal for the amount of money we're charging. And this is the best route to change this person's life or put them in the best, safest vehicle possible. You need, so product knowledge is important to a certain degree. You need to understand it and be convicted that that's the best in the market.
I 100% agree with you. I think that sometimes, especially like for trainers and gym owners, they have so much product knowledge. They have so much knowledge of exercise science. That's what they then focus on and they go deep on. And the client's like, I don't care. Like if I'm driving a car, like, is this car going to make me, depending on the buyer, is this car going to make me look cool? Is it going to get me from point A to point B? Is it going to be comfortable? Like I was thinking look cool because you're at Mercedes and stuff like that. Right. And let's be real, like, for a lot of people, status is a real important, like, why
That's
they
why I buy all
things.
my cars. I literally buy all my cars for status.
So some people,
every car will get you where you got to go, dude. You can buy a Kia or a Ferrari. They will both accomplish the same thing. One will accomplish people staring at you and feeding your ego, making you feel good about yourself. But they both get you from point A to point B.
Point A to B. Which, like, speaking, that's why I started giggling when we're talking Benz. Because I remember when I first walked, because that's how we met was with Benz. Which also, by the way, there's something here too, because your mom, and I think we've talked about this before, said, like, before we even ever met that we'd do business together, which is crazy.
It was weird.
So like when I remember walking into Benz and nobody, like, I remember, like, because I went to one Benz dealership because I knew I was either buying
it was the Wilmington one, right?
Which I had one, and I went to the Wilmington Benz. I walked around, nobody even came and talked to me. So I was like, all right, F you. So I left and I went to the Westchester one.
In all fairness, you look like a cowboy. You had like a leather jacket and cowboy boots on. When we're in like the Northeast outside of Philly, they're probably like, what the F is wrong with this dude?
I think, well, it was also winter. And I have a problem where I have a ridiculous leather jacket collection. Which I
for some reason, when you're growing up doing like the, what is it, Cowboys and Indians, you were always the cowboy. When you grew up, you're like, I can afford an actual cowboy outfit. You're like, fuck it.
I got it. And now I live in cowboy area, but I don't.
Right.
Actually, one of the reasons I moved out to Montana too is because I wanted to get a ranch. So I still want to get a ranch one day, but I was like, that's a lot of work.
Dude, you're living out your cowboy fantasy from childhood.
This is true. There's something there that I didn't even know. Yeah, this is 100% true. But I do remember when I walked into Benz, like, the first guy just like completely blew me off. Like, so the first dealership completely blew me off. The first two blew me off. And then I bought a car then. And then the next year I bought two cars. I didn't follow through on the third one, but it was like, the fuck? But I do agree. It wasn't the person that had probably the most product knowledge. It was the one that actually believed in the product and was able to connect with the person. And that's, I think, the most important.
Shout out to Matt Riemel. That's at Mercedes-Benz of Fort Washington. You are not the person with the most product knowledge, but you are the one that's willing. I didn't do that. You are the one that's willing to talk to anybody and work with anybody and work a great deal. So if you guys live in the Philly area, go see Matt Riemel at Fort Washington, Mercedes-Benz. But don't go for him and ask him what type of steel the struts are made out of, because he will not know that. No, he's a great salesman and a good friend.
But if you're buying that shit, you should know that anyway. Like, that's what you should be looking into, to know the different product spec. But yeah, I don't know. That's hilarious. And this is, so when I was like, today, I was like, what should we talk about? And when I was reading this morning, I'm reading Ready, Fire, Aim for the first time, even though, like, I've used the title of the book as How I Operate Businesses, period. And I've never read the book. But so I started reading it.
I think I bought that like a week ago.
Can me think. And I think kind of like today does kind of like carry over where I was like, hey, why don't we chat about kind of what are some of your core beliefs and traits and skills that you think you have that allow you to be, look at that. Yeah.
I told you I bought it the other day.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like, I'm really digging it. I'm like, I'm getting back to reading in the morning. So I was like, my body keeps waking me up between 4 and 5 for some damn reason. I was like, let me just like spend that time to read. And I forgot how awesome it is to start my day, like, not on my fucking phone, reading, and like I just obviously crave knowledge, so like you, but So I was reading that, and it's like he talks about the 4 phases, like 0 to 1, 1 to 10, I think 10 to 50 or something like that, and 50 to 100. And I could be wrong on that, but so it made me start thinking, because obviously you started your second, I guess, like actually you've had multiple businesses, um, and as have I.
The first 5 were
So what do you?
failures.
But what do you think? What do you think are the skills and traits you need in order to to get your business from 0 to 1? What do you think those are? That's kind of what I was curious about talking today. Just because, like, thinking about, like, I know with the lawyers that you work with, a lot of the gym owners that I work with, like there's like kind of like 2 phases. It's like the 0 to 1, which is like, hey, I'm starting or I'm struggling, I haven't gotten traction. It's like, all right, cool. And then it's like, 1 to 10, which is I've gotten the traction, I'm building the team and all that stuff. But I'd be curious to talk about, I don't know, maybe some of the key traits that you think have to be there in order to be successful, which I actually think the belief and mindset is like core. You have to believe you're going to be successful. If you didn't, you wouldn't have tried 8 times. So you
Right.
did, kind of thing.
So remember that question, because I'm going to get back to it and I'm going to answer it in a really roundabout way via route of what you just said right there, the belief. So kind of going back to my story about, like, you attract what comes to you, right, or whatever. Like in my life, I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I always wanted to be successful. And I always pride my mind. I was always reading, right? In Ben's, I was reading books. I was talking to, I remember Faz. He was another sales rep there. He was a Pakistani guy. And he was part of Toastmasters, right? Like the speech.
Oh, yeah.
So he's part of Toastmasters, like new, what's his name? The greatest speaker, like almost of all time. 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. You know who he is, Christian guy.
Maxwell? John Maxwell?
Yes, John Maxwell. So, like, I'd always be at his desk talking sales, talking like entrepreneurship, even when I was just an employee at Ben's, always talking about these things, always wanting it, right? Always priming my mind. And like, I was always in the mindset and that this is possible. I'm going to do it somehow, some way, learning how to set clear goals. Like I remember me and him were sitting out there. We were actually doing the SMART goal thing. He was teaching me how to set goals. And like, I was always doing this. In the middle of me selling cars, I'm in the back room reading, or I'm at my desk taking a course or a sales course or something. Like I always had that stuff going in my mind. So I was priming my mind and I had the positive energy that this is possible. Then when you walked in, I was able to recognize, like, okay, there's something here. Like it might have been, so for somebody that wasn't primed like that, or wasn't thinking that way, or didn't have the mindset of like, hey, I'm going to do this, or this is like possible, or like, I can, they might have just met you, be like, oh dude, that's cool. My mom went to that gym. That's freaking awesome, dude. And that might've been the end of it. But like every time you came in, I was like picking your brain, like, how'd you do this? How'd you do blah, 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 blah. And you're like, well, how much you making here? You're like, I know another place you can make more. And you're like, I kind of have a vested interest, but like, of course you're a salesman, right? You're pitching me. And like, I took the bait and I'm like, oh, cool.
FTC, I made no income claims whatsoever. Just so you are watching this, 0 income claims or guarantees were made.
If Bob goes to jail, it's all pitching to bail him out. But it was like, we had, and then I think the situation dragged out for like 6 months or 9 months. But like I just said it to, like, you have to believe. Like the first step is belief. Like I believed that something else was possible. And not only did I believe, but I took action towards it. Like I took courses, I read books, I set goals, I was reading psycho-cybernetics, I was reading a bunch of stuff to kind of prime my mind for like what was coming. And I like knew it was possible. And I was able to recognize that opportunity, whether we say the energy brought it to me or whatever like that, like it just happened, whatever you want, however you want to say it, it was there and I was able to take advantage of it and I was able to notice it. So, for me, like, I think the first step, and obviously, I'm writing a book about like attorneys, and I think the first step is just really believing, right? And not just believing, but like taking steps to understand what it takes to open a business or start a business, right? You need to, like, it's really cool to go on Instagram. Like I started a business. Like I had somebody email me today, like, hey dude, I'm trying to run ads on Facebook for, things. You have any tips? I'm like, that's like me asking. It was a fitness person. I was like, that's like me asking you, how can I lose weight? You've never seen a picture of me or anything. Like, hey dude, I see you help people lose weight. Like, how do I lose weight? You've never seen me. You have no clue what I weigh, what I look like, what I've been doing, what I've been eating, nothing. I'm like, I can't answer that question for you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to point you in the direction of a course. Take the course and learn it. Mm-hmm. So like, you have to, when you start a business, I think the first step is belief, but not just belief, it's belief and action. Pick up a book, learn what it takes to run a business, get an idea of it, and understand like what it takes to go into belief and some kind of action.
Yeah. And I think it's like, that's like super foundational stuff, is like having the belief, having the right mindset, and then action. But it's like taking action and developing the skills. So Also, like what I was hearing
But
you
you
say
can't take
too
action
is,
and develop the skills if you don't know what the skills are.
well, and that's where I was about to go. Is like I think the skills that are paramount in that are marketing and sales. Like
Right.
maybe it's just the businesses that I've been involved in, but I don't know, and there's, even if I'm a big fan of like paid marketing and paid advertising to start, even though
Right.
I am falling in love with like organic marketing. And I think, wow, I didn't, I don't know. I just didn't really give it the attention that it deserved, even though we did a
Paid is easy.
shit ton
Paid
of
is
it.
easier. It's like,
Paid is easy. Yeah. Like we did a shit ton of organic stuff throughout the entire time with Legion that compounded on the paid stuff.
yeah.
Um, but I would say like, cause even if somebody's like, hey, I'm trying to run ads, I'd be like, cool, then you need to have a really good offer. And that's going to be the most important. Then it's going to be your copy and your creative
Right.
are going to be really good, but it doesn't matter. And there's so much like
Funny
nuance
you
in there,
say
but it's like,
that.
it's like the offer is going to be key. But just like, even as we go to start bringing on new franchisees, I'm like, man, I can teach them our model of gym. Like our model
Yeah.
is the best, how we deliver like our workouts, everything like that. Like I love it. So it's like, do I
Note on
want
that when
somebody
you're
that's,
finished too. That's
yeah,
gonna be part of what I'm talking
yeah.
about.
It's like, do I want somebody that's like, whose foundational skills are in exercise science? I want them to be passionate about fitness, just like when I'm building a team, like I want people passionate physics. But actually it's like, I want salespeople because that's a foundational skill that I want. I want somebody to understand skills. So if I'm going to be starting a business, I'm going to be developing the skills within sales and marketing. And those are the original skills that I developed early on too. And then I got better with like copywriting and offers and all that stuff. But like you can't sell if you can't attract anybody to you. And then you actually can't sell them into, if you're selling something invisible, some sort of intangible result, or selling a product or whatever, the actual product. So I think, especially 0 to 1, you have to have the ability to attract those clients. Which, like, so when we talk about gyms, like talking about step one, like building a successful gym, it's like having your successful campaign, which is the offer, the marketing fire behind it, the sales system, and then like delivering on that actual offer. But it's like attracting the new client and then signing them up. So like the most important thing, in my opinion, to develop skills for getting from 0 to 1 is having a predictable way to get new clients, whether it's new clients as
Right.
far as service-based business or selling products. But
I
let you
actually,
go. No.
I'm diving into our franchise story, right? Like
Okay,
how I
let's do
started
it.
with you, because I think that's very
Yeah, yeah.
relevant, right? Like, so my first business, knocking on my neighbors' doors and shoveling snow, or like mowing half their lawn, then knocking up and asking them for money, right? I was a kid. I didn't know anything about business, but I knew how to like get people to give me money, right? So
Yeah.
first real business I started was a concrete business, right? I used to do like, I put an ad in the paper. I used to take a truck around, do like sidewalks and curbs and stuff like that. And I was
Oh,
always an
wow.
entrepreneur. I wasn't actually a laborer. So I got my grandfather and my dad to do the jobs, and I collect the money, and they wouldn't charge me anything. I wouldn't pay them. I just like manipulated them into doing the work and got money. That was smart.
Sounds like something you'd do.
Yeah. So that was my first business. It failed. I then opened a tattoo parlor. It failed. And then I had a music career, which AKA is a business. It failed. Why did all these businesses fail? My next step in entrepreneurship is all the way. I mean, fast forward into what I did was franchising a Legion.
Mm-hmm.
I've always had the ability to sell. I didn't really know how to market. I know how to market now, but I think that you don't know what you don't know, right? I didn't know what it really took to run a business or what it was needed to run a business. I had no idea. I just knew do the work. That's all I knew. I think it was so beneficial going into a franchise and understanding this is a payment processor. This is how you set up products. This is how to price them. This is how the structure. I think just seeing that allowed me to be like, oh, this is all taken care of. I get it. And I can just apply my sales skills and just do what I do best. I think that helped me a lot. Now, from going through there, and then our next business with FitPro, I think that I learned all the other stuff that I needed to know. But I think what really helped me out was like just having that structure there. Be like, yo, your talents are sales and passion for fitness and like people. Do what you do. We got all this covered. This stuff is easy. Just follow the playbook, do it, and then you do your thing, what you're good at. And that's what allowed me to be successful there. But through that FitPro, now where I'm at now, I learned all the other sides. So it's really tough when you're getting started. Like you don't know what you don't know. And it's how do you figure that out? I figured it out by failing 5 times and then getting a franchise and getting it handed to me. Here's how you operate a business.
Yeah. And I think that's an amazing testimonial to Legion Transformation franchising. I think that's really important. Like if you're you're not, let's say, haven't had success or you've never even started your own business, like franchise is an absolutely great vehicle to it because essentially it's a
Great
business in a
vehicle.
box. Everything is already done for you. If you could just replicate and do the work, then you might get a really favorable outcome.
But
So I
why do
think like
people
that's a
fail?
huge
But
thing.
why do people fail in the same system that I would thrive in? Why can people fail?
But it comes down to beliefs, but then you still have to develop the skills. Like you can have a sales process in front of you, but one, you'll have to do it, but you also have to do it with conviction and belief and understanding. So you still have to develop the
Yep.
skills. And I think that one of the things I was thinking about as you were talking was Vern Harnish, who wrote Scaling Up, and he was like one of the founders of Entrepreneurs
He emails me
Organization.
5 times a day, dude. His email thing is like rough. It's like, God, slow down.
Well, maybe you should step up your game because Frank Kern emails multiple times a day, and he's one of the best marketers of all time. So get him
I do
off
it
your
multiple
list,
times a
bro.
year.
Yeah, you just because you don't market it, you just call all the time, or you don't email. But he was like, for him, and 0 to 1, it's the hardest. So we're talking about like 0 to 1, which is the hardest. Like starting a business, you failed multiple times. I've had businesses that I've haven't been successful as well. Like that start part is hard. So he actually,
Yeah.
I remember hearing him speak a couple years ago. He's like, I'll never start a business from scratch again. I'll only go into businesses or buy businesses that already have a proven concept,
Yeah.
that I've already done $1 million in sales, because then I can put the structure in it and then I'll just like blow it up. And there's a
Yeah.
lot of people's belief on that because getting it started is very difficult. And then also I've met some awesome dudes. Like when I started franchising, I talked to franchisees and franchisors to get a lot of feedback of like the good and the bad, what to expect, how can I get new clients, how can I better serve the franchisees. And I remember talking to one dude who's a killer entrepreneur. So I can't remember what his first business was. It might have been like a Blockbuster-esque business. He started it, had that, and then he realized like the business was going out, so he sold it and was good. His next business was something similar, like something disrupted it and it like put it out, but he was able to, I think, get out of it unscathed. So he goes, my next business, I want to do it where one, I don't know how to actually do the service. And I want it where it's going to be recession proof, technology proof. It's never going to go anywhere. So at the time I met him, which was a couple of years ago, so I'm sure it's much greater now. He had like 50 like supercuts maybe, or hair cutteries, or I think it was supercuts. So he had a ton. He's like, I don't know how to cut hair. He's like, that as a result, like my team can never ask me to go into the chair. But he was a phenomenal entrepreneur that already had the system that was built.
Yep.
He like the whole model for like, hey, here's a barber shop and stuff like that. To create a profitable business. It was already done. So all he had to do was then take his skills of really, leadership, managing a team, executing on marketing and branding and stuff like that are kind of already laid out. And then the cool thing about a franchise is not only do you have the model done, but then like when there's even more of you, like the bigger a franchise goes, the better buying power you get and stuff like that.
Right.
But so he already had it there. So he's like, hey, I like a lot of the stuff is like, it's kind of like done for me as long as I put the work in. And that is also another mistake that I think a lot of people go into franchising, or actually even any business, is they have to do the work. Within a franchise, it might already be completely laid out from like, you've never opened a business. Here's what you do to get this business open. Here's the exact playbooks, all the stuff. Here's then the tools in order to be successful.
Yep.
But it's not done for you. Like the franchisor isn't going to run your business.
Right.
You have to run your business. You have to make sure things get executed. You have to, to take the strategy and then execute it at that location or whatever, the business model is. And that's like, he was like, hey, it's already been done. I don't need to do that. I just got to execute, and I got to lead the team, and I got to drive, and I got to keep pushing forward. And he was just like, it was actually really cool because it got to the point where he had so many locations. He's like, I have to open up. I have to continue expanding so that my competitors can't take market share.
Yeah.
And it was actually one of the coolest things, like having that conversation with him, is like, here you have this very seasoned entrepreneur that said, screw it, I'm going to get into franchising. And it's like, you look at, what is it? Like Shaq. Shaq has a shit ton of franchises.
Yeah, a
He's an
lot.
excellent businessman.
Doesn't he have like
a shit
50
ton.
something?
It's either 50, 150, 200. I don't know. Like him, I think Magic Johnson, I think, has a ton. There's a lot of people that have a ton, where it's like, yeah, like you can put those skills in. But I think that's a really good point.
50 brands.
Yeah. Okay. There it is. Yeah. Like that's something I didn't think about that you said is, hey, if you're looking, because somebody that gets into franchising is usually somebody who maybe is going from the corporate world. So it's like, that's what we're we want to get salespeople. If I could get for Legion,
But I almost
give
think
away
that
my
you just
strategy.
want like entrepreneurs. Like I almost think that the person has to. Sales is a great skill, but you want somebody with that entrepreneurial bug because like you can't have an employee mindset going into it. Like because employees want to be told what to do. They want to like have so much structure that like they can fail and they can fall and somebody will pick them up. Like you have to have somebody who's like, dude, I got this. Show me the playbook. And they have to have that like some kind of entrepreneurial ingredient in it.
I do agree. They got to have entrepreneurial traits and skills, and just like
Traits.
really great employees. Like you've heard that term, like entrepreneurial. Like you want the entrepreneurial. The thing is, and I think in franchising early on, you get a little bit more entrepreneurs that want to grow your brand. But like there was a guy that we rejected because he was trying to be this entrepreneur, but he wanted to change the system. And it's like, hey, like that is the problem. Whereas like if you are an entrepreneur, like when you get into franchising, you have the brand, you have the system. We can all improve upon it together when we get into that we phase. But you don't want to change it because if you change the ingredients and you're baking a cake, you're no longer going to have that same cake.
Right.
So there is a blend where you want to have entrepreneurial traits, but like something that you're good with and you did really good is you didn't try and change the things. You just executed and improved upon what was already in the playbooks. Whereas other people in this brand or other brands that haven't had success, they were like, I like this, but I'm going to do this instead. And it's like, well, that didn't work. So there is, I think, if you're going into a company or whether it's a franchise or any other company, the goal isn't necessarily to completely change it depending on the business, but it's to improve upon and use what's inside of it. So right. I think there's a blend of, and there's something I was doing yesterday. It's like early on in the franchise, you get a lot more entrepreneurial individuals because there is a little bit more risk in an early franchise. Whereas afterwards, you get those really good operators who are like, I'm an excellent operator. Yeah, like they're like, I'm an excellent operator. So that's where, like, when you get franchises, you get people like Shaq who has 50 brands. There's two ways to grow in franchising. A lot of times for franchisees, it's they can open up more of the same brand, or they're like, hey, I'm going to open up multiple brands in like one area and right. then just, kind of own that geographic market. So I think you need to have entrepreneurial traits and skills, but while still being able to follow a playbook and not try and deviate it from it. Because then if you're just going to deviate, just do your own thing. Start from scratch. It's harder, but like that's where like a lot of the people that we do consulting like wouldn't be a good fit inside of Legion.
Right.
So it's like, that's why, we're able to do that. But
I almost thought franchising for me was like consulting, right? Like I kind of learned everything I needed. It was almost like, I got a great business from it. Right. But like, I think for me, it was almost like the learning experience of how everything operated. I was like, wow, that was cool. Like I literally like was like, it's almost like just working under you. Like, hey dude, just show me how to do everything. I was shown how to do everything. I'm making money in the process. I'm like, oh cool. I get it now. It was like taking on an internship for me. I was like, wow, I get it. Cool.
Yeah. That's a really good way to look at it.
Yeah. It taught me a lot of stuff. So, and then, Fit Pro taught me a lot too. And like every step of the way, I learned a lot. It's funny. I was telling one of the guys in our group the other day. I don't think I told you this. We were talking about like all the members that were like in that chat or whatever in our live the other day. And I was like, dude, I learned a lot of my stuff just from Bob. Like, I'm on this mastermind. He's like, why are you in here? Like, I don't know, dude. I'm like, honestly, like I learned all my stuff from Bob, just like shooting the shit with him, just starting businesses with him, doing stuff. Like, I don't know. I'm just in here because Bob's in here. It's fun.
I'll take the ego stroke.
Yeah.
For those that don't know, Angelo can be quite aggressive, and it's fucking hilarious.
So we're on a meeting. This is so irrelevant. We're on a group call in a mastermind we're in yesterday, and somebody's asking a stupid question. And I have like zero tolerance for stupidity. It probably comes from being a stupid person, right? Because I'm dumb. So like I have zero tolerance for it. I get it, right? Somebody was like, how do I sell more of my brand in 2020 or sell more products in 2020? I was like, and I'm like, dude, is this guy really asking this question? I'm like, I'm about to just like take my thing off mute and just like blast him. And Bob's texting me. What were you texting me?
Well, see, it didn't bother me. I like, it's like it does bother you a lot more. Like, it doesn't matter. He had a question, he didn't understand, and needed help working through it. That's the whole point of what we're in. But I knew it bothered the shit out of you, so I was just egging you on.
Bob's like, take your thing off mute. Why are you telling me? Tell him. He's like, you won't do it. And I was like, dude, don't do this to me. I was that kid in high school, and I always got in trouble because people dared me to do things. I was like, please don't do this to me. And Bob was like, you won't. And I like,
Weird.
and right in the middle of the meeting, boom. What was that question again? It's like the person who's running it.
I will say, like, I think your answer was actually really good. And I think it was very helpful for him, and I think it would be helpful for anybody else. But yeah, I don't know. It didn't bother me. I just knew it bothered you. And I think maybe it's because everybody's at different levels. Like, you've been a massive student of the game for so long.
Yeah.
And I think we have to, like you talked about the guy that emailed you. Like, that is a good question for him at the stage he's at. And he just needs to learn more. It's like, you just need to develop the skills. And there's a million courses out there on how to run ads. Like, if I was brand new and I was like, there's some really good marketers. If I was brand new and I needed to get a course, I would probably buy like the Smart Marketer course.
Yeah.
You know,
that's where I sent him to.
Oh, did you? It's such a great course. Like, Molly Pittman and Pepin and that crew, like, they're awesome when it comes to running ads. So,
right.
Because, but there's other ones out there, but it's like, hey, I think, that's the thing. It's like, you just got to invest in the time to develop the skills, but then you got to take action. Like, I remember I think Frank Kern said this when I did a high level fellowship course that he had, which was like a 12 or 16 week course back in 2014. It was like 12 or 16 weeks, and it was guided. So like every week there was a new thing. And then at the end we had an event in San Diego. But I wish I remember the stat, and I'm sure it's still true, but it was like only 1% or 3% of the people are actually going to go and finish the course.
Dude, it's true.
Which is just bonkers. So if you're developing the skills,
I literally see that right now with a course I put together for attorneys on how to sell intake and how to do this, dude. Literally, I'll tell you, there's like, I can count on two hands. We have like 140 clients. I can count on two hands.
Yeah.
How many attorneys have actually completed the program?
Yeah. I mean, it's a bummer. And that's the thing. It's like, there's always something that you can learn from there, but I think you have to be open-minded to learn new things at every point of the game. And I wasn't always like that. I was very like closed-minded, and I knew I had that ego stage. I think when I first started getting success in business, and you're like, I'm the fucking best. Ain't nobody can touch me. I still got a pretty big ego for sure, and definitely think I'm the best at what I do. But I also know that people above and below me on the success ladder I can learn from, and I think it's really exciting in the entrepreneurial space, like seeing what some of these younger dudes and chicks are coming up with, like the success they're having, like so quickly and so early. It's going to be interesting in the next 20 years to see how the game of wealth has changed and how quickly people can acquire it, how much easier it is. And there's so much information out there. Like, that's the tough part. There's so much information. Cool on that dude for like just straight trying to go to you. But it's like, hey, unless you're honestly like going to pay for those shortcuts, oftentimes you got to pay for the shortcuts. It's either you're going to pay for consulting and some coaching, or you're going to pay for a course. But I think it's, if you pay for coaching,
you pay for it, or you pay for it and messing up and having to go back and read.
This is true. Yeah, you pay for it in like on the job training, and I think that is important. It's like, you got to be careful where and who you learn from too, though, or how you learn. Like, if your brand, and that's what we're looking as far as inside of like Gym Academy, and I've been like, it's like, there's some people that if they're just learning about marketing, they're not quite ready to even get into it. Because a lot of people open a gym because they're fucking passionate about it. Like, I love training people. And they're like, oh, this is gym. But like, I think about the first couple years in business for me, like there was an opening phase where I had to just read the books and read the websites and kind of get my feet wet a little bit before I was like, oh, this is the next level, kind of thing. And that's where we're trying to meet people where they are at every level, so that they can grow with us, kind of thing. And the same thing in the franchise, like the ultimate level. If you're thinking about opening a gym and you've never had one, boom, the recipe's already done in the franchise, kind of thing. If you already have one, you need to turn it around, boom. That's the academy.
Yeah, dude, agreed. I like that. You pay for it now, you pay for it later. Truth.
Pay for it now, pay for it later.
Peace.